Welcome to Infinite Novel. Dive into epic alternate realities. All rights to original creators.
Chapter 181 Jinchuriki taking control of Water Source Valley would be nearly impossible without the full backing of Konoha's higher UPS. After all, nearly all of Omegacorp's elite forces were concentrated in that strategic location. Lord Jiraiya, I really don't understand what the village is thinking. Why won't they send reinforcements? If we manage to capture Water Source Valley, nearly all of Omegacorp's vital resource points will fall under Konoha's control. Uchiha Raiden's voice carried a hint of frustration. Having fought alongside Jiraiya for half a year, he deeply respected him more than he respected Konoha's leadership. The village has its reasons, Jiraiya explained. Water Source Valley is an essential stronghold, and securing it would require at least 2,000 additional shinobi. But right now, Konoha is spread thin. The Land of Lightning and the Land of Water are not involved in this war yet, and both border our nation. If we weaken our defenses too much, they'll seize the opportunity to attack. Jiraiya didn't want Raiden to harbor resentment toward Konoha's leadership. As a key figure in the Uchiha clan, Raiden's opinions carried weight, and his dissatisfaction could easily spread within his clan. If that happened, tensions between the Uchiha and the village would only escalate. Jiraiya understood how vital the Uchiha clan's strength was for his vision of unifying the ninja world. He would never allow the higher UPS to order their extermination. The Uchiha were undeniably powerful. In the original timeline, after the clan was wiped out, Konoha's strength rapidly declined. I understand the village has its difficulties, Raiden replied. I just can't accept it so easily. Be patient, Jiraiya reassured him. I promise you Water Source Valley will be ours, and Omegacorp will become part of the Land of Fire. This wasn't just empty talk. Jiraiya had the ability to make it happen. Omegacorp had only one truly formidable ninja, Hanzo of the Salamander. Other than him, there were no top-tier warriors in the country. Hanzo had earned the title of demigod of the shinobi world thanks to his exceptional taijutsu and mastery over lethal poisons. But Jiraiya possessed the universal poison seal, making him nearly immune to Hanzo's toxic techniques. If Jiraiya could gain control over the One Tail's power on top of his own formidable abilities, then eliminating Hanzo was entirely within reach. With Hanzo gone, Omegacorp would fall, and the Land of Fire would fully annex it. There was no doubt about that. The reason Hiruzen Sarutobi had always been cautious was simple: he feared Hanzo's strength. As Hokage, he couldn't leave Konoha undefended. His presence in the village was essential. And with Sarutobi unable to personally enter Omegacorp, few within Konoha were strong enough to face Hanzo head-on. He feared that if Konoha pushed Hanzo too hard, the war would escalate into a brutal, mutually destructive conflict. The village would suffer heavy casualties, leaving it vulnerable to the Land of Wind and the Land of Earth. For now, give the order to halt all offensives against Water Source Valley, Jiraiya instructed. Understood, Lord Jiraiya. I'll handle it immediately. Raiden nodded before leaving the room. Several days later, deep within Omegacorp, at a stronghold occupied by Tsunade forces, a robed monk entered the encampment. The gathered Suna shinobi erupted in excitement upon seeing him. Bunpyaku-sama, you've finally arrived. We can finally strike back. For the past 6 months, Konoha's forces have tormented us. At last, we have a chance for revenge. You don't know how much we've suffered, Bunpyaku-sama. Now that you're here, we can finally turn the tide. Our days of misery are over. With you here, Bunpyaku-sama, Jiraiya won't stand a chance. The monk was none other than Bunpyaku, the Jinchuriki of the One Tail. For months, the Suna forces had been relentlessly hunted by Jiraiya and his troops, unable to put up a meaningful resistance. Desperate, they had repeatedly pleaded with Tsunade's leadership to send reinforcements. If they couldn't turn the tide, all their efforts to claim Omegacorp's resources would be wasted. After much deliberation, Tsunade's council made their decision: they would send their Jinchuriki to the battlefield. The Land of Wind was unwilling to abandon its invasion. The vast resources of Omegacorp were simply too enticing, but to secure their hold, they had to eliminate Jiraiya. As long as he lived, no matter how many cities they captured, Konoha would always take them back. If they didn't kill Jiraiya, all their efforts would be in vain. Calm yourselves, Bunpyaku said. I'll rest for the night. Tomorrow, I'll deal with Jiraiya myself. Seeing the desperation on the faces of the Suna shinobi, he could tell they had endured terrible hardships. A surge of anger welled up within him. Tell me everything you know about Jiraiya's abilities. Although Tsunade had already provided him with extensive intelligence before he arrived, Bunpyaku wanted to hear first-hand accounts from those who had fought against him. Jiraiya was an exceptionally powerful opponent. Even with the One Tail's strength at his disposal, he had to be cautious. The fact that Jiraiya had led Konoha's forces and driven back shinobi from the Land of Wind, the Land of Earth, and Omegacorp itself spoke volumes about his prowess. The Suna shinobi eagerly began recounting everything they knew about Jiraiya's techniques. As Bunpyaku listened, his expression grew more and more serious. A heavy pressure settled over him. Jiraiya was terrifyingly strong. Such a formidable opponent. To think that someone so young already wields cage-level strength. There are few prodigies like him in the entire ninja world. Bunpyaku couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Chapter 182 Tailed Beast Ball. Bunpyaku spent the night resting at a stronghold in the Land of Wind. At dawn, he led a group of Tsunaga Corps shinobi toward Jiraiya's location. Bunpyaku-sama, Jiraiya is residing in the stronghold ahead, an elite Tsunaga Corps jonin reported respectfully. Wait here. I'll handle this alone, Bunpyaku replied, gazing at the distant Konoha outpost. Without another word, he strode forward, making his way toward the Konoha base. The Tsunaga Corps shinobi remained behind. Bunpyaku was not a perfect Jinchuriki. If he fully transformed into Shukaku, he would lose control, and the tailed beast would take over. Shukaku harbored deep resentment towards Tsunaga Corps, viewing its shinobi with hostility. If it seized Bunpyaku's consciousness, it would have no hesitation in attacking them. Thus, their task was to stand by. If Bunpyaku entered full-tailed beast form and annihilated the Konoha shinobi, they would be responsible for bringing him back to his senses. As Bunpyaku approached the Konoha outpost, a deep red chakra surged from his body, instantly enveloping him in a shroud of malevolent energy. His form distorted, shifting into a monstrous, half-tailed beast state. He knew full well if he wanted to defeat Jiraiya, he had no choice but to rely on Shukaku's power. Without it, he stood no chance. Now fully clad in the crimson cloak of tailed beast chakra, his humanoid features were all but gone. The swirling, corrosive energy around him twisted the air itself. Bunpyaku came to a halt. His jaw opened wide as chakra gathered within, coalescing into a dense, growing sphere. From the start, he had intended to use his strongest attack, tailed beast ball. There was no time for drawn-out battles. Against someone as formidable as Jiraiya, hesitation was fatal. A swift and overwhelming assault was his only path to victory. As the sphere of chakra condensed, an oppressive aura of pure destruction radiated from Bunpyaku, shaking the very ground beneath him. Going straight for a tailed beast ball, huh? Guess he's not underestimating me, Jiraiya murmured from within the outpost, watching as Bunpyaku prepared his attack. The base was empty. Jiraiya had anticipated this confrontation. His intelligence sources had warned him of Bunpyaku's approach. Understanding the threat posed by a Jinchuriki, he had ordered all Konoha personnel to evacuate. If his men had remained, they would have suffered heavy casualties. A single-tailed beast ball would obliterate the entire outpost. No shinobi stationed here would have survived. Thus, Jiraiya chose to face Bunpyaku alone. Slamming his hands together, he entered Sage mode and summoned the two great Toad Sages. Looks like you've got quite the mess on your hands, kid, Fukazaku said gravely, immediately sensing the immense chakra from Bunpyaku's transformation. It's just Shukaku. With the three of us working together, we can handle it, Jiraiya replied with a confident grin. After all, in the original timeline, even Gamabunta alone could hold his own against Shukaku for a time. Now, in Sage mode, with two Toad Sages backing him up, and his mastery of Uzumaki sealing techniques, Jiraiya was more than prepared. This was why he had let the others retreat. He had absolute confidence in his ability to handle the situation. If he had any doubts, he would have stationed Uchiha Raiden and other elite jonin nearby for support. The tailed beast ball reached its peak density, glowing an ominous shade of deep purple and black. Then, in an instant, it shot forward. The sheer force of the attack split the earth apart, carving a massive trench as the land caved in on itself. A storm of destruction surged forward, consuming everything in its path. Jiraiya didn't even attempt to block it. Instead, he dashed out of the outpost, heading straight for Bunpyaku. The stronghold, already abandoned, was expendable. The safety of Konoha shinobi had been secured. A base could always be rebuilt. With a deafening explosion, the tailed beast ball struck its target. A blinding light pierced the sky, the force of the blast shaking the heavens. The shockwave reduced the outpost to nothingness, leaving only a massive, scorched crater in its wake. From a distant ridge, a group of Konoha shinobi watched in awe and horror. Was that a tailed beast ball? That power is unreal. No doubt about it. I can't believe Bunpyaku arrived so quickly. Tailed beasts truly are monsters, to think they can unleash such devastation so easily. A murmur of disbelief spread through the assembled shinobi as they took in the aftermath of the explosion. One of them, clearly unsettled, turned to his comrades. Jiraiya-sama is still back there, alone. Shouldn't we go back and help him? Jiraiya-sama knew Bunpyaku was coming and still chose to face him alone, another shinobi replied firmly. That means he's confident in his victory. We've fought alongside Jiraiya-sama for months. We know how powerful he is. If he wasn't absolutely sure, he wouldn't have sent us away. If we return now, we'll only be a burden to him. Raiden spoke with conviction. All we can do is wait. When Jiraiya-sama defeats the Jinchuriki, we'll be ready. Tsunade, who had remained silent, finally spoke. Raiden's right. As much as I want to rush in, I trust Jiraiya. He won't lose. Meanwhile, back at the Tsunaga Corps encampment, excitement filled the air. As expected of Bunpyaku-sama, he leveled the Konoha outpost in a single strike. With Bunpyaku-sama personally taking action, even someone like Jiraiya doesn't stand a chance. After today, we'll finally erase the shame Konoha inflicted upon us. The Tsunaga Corps shinobi cheered, convinced that victory was already in their grasp. Chapter 183 Supergiant Blaze Thunderstorm Spiral Explosion Orb. A single-tailed beast ball obliterated the entire Konoha outpost, reducing it to nothing but scorched earth. The Tsunaga Corps shinobi watching the spectacle were overwhelmed with excitement. The frustration and resentment they had harbored for the past 6 months vanished in an instant. Bunpyaku-sama is unbelievably powerful. That damn Jiraiya this time, he'll be reduced to ashes for sure. Once we kill Jiraiya, we can solidify our alliance with the land of Earth. The territory Fire Country stole from us, we'll reclaim it all soon enough. The Tsunade shinobi were already dreaming of their future victories. They were convinced Bunpyaku wouldn't lose. No matter how strong Jiraiya was, he couldn't possibly surpass a tailed beast. They had witnessed the horror of Shikaku's rampage firsthand. Only their Kaze cage had the power to suppress it. Jiraiya had risen to prominence over the past 6 months, with many believing he had reached cage-level strength. But even so, they didn't think he could match a village's cage or a Jinchuriki. He was still too young, too lacking in experience and foundation. What terrifying power! Jiraiya gazed at the smoldering ruins of the outpost, now having a much clearer understanding of the tailed beast ball's destructive capability. Even the weakest of the tailed beast Shikaku could unleash an attack capable of annihilating everything in its path. The instant Bunpyaku fired the tailed beast ball, Jiraiya had already used the body flicker technique to escape the outpost. As the attack struck, he had long since put a safe distance between himself and the blast. Not a scratch had reached him. However, the sheer heat and shockwave from the explosion were another matter. Even from afar, Jiraiya felt the scorching wind hammering against him. At ground zero, the earth had melted into lava, and the surrounding terrain was reduced to a bubbling, liquefied mess. That's some insane power, Shima muttered in awe. A tailed beast's chakra is nearly limitless. Attacks of this scale are perfectly normal, Fukazaku replied, far calmer than his partner. If we go all out, we can match this level of destruction ourselves. Jiraiya examined the aftermath and nodded. He now had a solid grasp of what he was up against. He could withstand an attack of this magnitude. Even if the tailed beast ball's power doubled, he was confident he could endure it. A tailed beast's most powerful technique was the tailed beast ball. Now that Jiraiya had assessed the situation, he felt reassured. Cracking his knuckles, he charged toward Bunpyaku. Bunpyaku had already begun forming a second tailed beast ball. His mission in the Land of Rain was simple: crush Konoha's forces and make them suffer. That was his sole purpose. Nothing else mattered. His only task was to kill. This time, his tailed beast ball was locked directly onto Jiraiya. As Jiraiya closed the distance, he felt the overwhelming threat of the attack. The speed of a tailed beast ball was terrifying. Once locked on, dodging became nearly impossible. There was only one option: take it head-on. The first tailed beast ball had been aimed at the outpost, not at Jiraiya himself. That, combined with his early retreat, allowed him to escape unscathed. But this one? This was a direct attack. He couldn't evade it. Elder Fukazaku, Elder Shima, it's time. Jiraiya roared, his hands flashing through hand seals. Jiraiya boy, it's been ages since I felt this fired up. I'm looking forward to this battle, Fukazaku declared, standing on Jiraiya's left shoulder, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. After years of training in Mount Mayaboku, battles that required his full power were rare. Don't get cocky, old man. Tailed beasts aren't to be underestimated, Shima warned. Puffed, it's just Shikaku, hardly worth getting too worked up over, Fukazaku scoffed. The tailed beast ball hurtled forward, tearing through the battlefield. Dust storms erupted in its wake, and the very earth trembled beneath its weight. Jiraiya's hands froze in the final seal. He raised his right hand, where a massive Raiznan took form. Enormous waves of chakra swirled within, surging wildly. Flames ignited along its surface, while arcs of lightning crackled through it. Fire and lightning fused into the sphere's core, condensing into an even deadlier force. From afar, the Raiznan looked like a burning, storming mountain in Jiraiya's hand. The sheer pressure emanating from it caused the very ground beneath him to sink and crack. This was no ordinary Raiznan. It was a fusion of multiple chakra natures and an advanced Raiznan variant. Jiraiya gritted his teeth and hurled the colossal sphere forward. As the spiral explosion orb launched, Fukazaku and Shima unleashed their own fire and lightning ninjutsu, infusing even more power into the technique. The Raiznan expanded violently, its destructive force rivaling the incoming tailed beast ball. The ground beneath it crumbled, the terrain shattering as it surged ahead. Boom! The two apocalyptic forces collided, shaking the heavens and earth. A thunderous explosion rocked the battlefield, a blinding light swallowing everything. The Tsunade shinobi observing from a distance had their eardrums shattered instantly. Blood poured from their ears, and many were blinded by the sheer intensity of the explosion. The shockwaves roared outward, ripping through the land. The earth split apart. The mountains crumbled. The rivers evaporated. Nothing in the blast's radius survived. Trees, stones, entire landscapes reduced to nothingness. Then, the shockwave expanded even further, devouring everything in its path. Chapter 184, is that it? The combined power of Sage Art Supergiant Raiznan and the assistance of two Sage Toads easily neutralized the tailed beast bomb. As the two forces clashed and consumed each other, the energy eventually dissipated, leaving behind an eerie calm. However, the surrounding landscape had been completely flattened, and the epicenter of the impact had turned the very ground into liquid. What kind of technique is that? It actually countered Lord Bunpyaku's tailed beast bomb head-on. Impossible. There's no way Jiraiya has that kind of power. How could he go toe-to-toe with a tailed beast bomb? That's simply absurd. Jiraiya's strength is terrifying. He actually blocked a tailed beast bomb through sheer force. He's been hiding such a monstrous power all this time? During our battles, he never once used his full strength. The Tsunaga Corps shinobi were in complete disbelief as they watched Jiraiya neutralize the tailed beast bomb with ease. In their minds, a single attack from Bunpyku should have at least severely injured Jiraiya, if not outright killed him. Yet, not only was Jiraiya unharmed, but he had effortlessly repelled the attack. The confidence they had earlier believing Bunpyku could finish Jiraiya off was now completely shattered. Anxiety crept into their hearts as fear took hold. Bunpyku himself widened his eyes in astonishment. What a terrifying young man. He must be eliminated here and now. Otherwise, he will become the greatest threat to our village. Realizing Jiraiya's overwhelming strength, Bunpyku made up his mind. No matter what, Jiraiya had to die today. If left unchecked, given more time to grow, he could become as fearsome as Senju Hashirama. That was something Bunpyku could never allow. Jiraiya, for someone so young to possess such power, it truly defies all expectations. However, this is as far as you go. Though his tone was calm, it carried a murderous intent as his half-transformed, tailed beast-enhanced crimson eyes locked onto Jiraiya. Jiraiya scoffed. I don't like wasting words. And I certainly don't like listening to them. His gaze sharpened. You think you can stop me here? Dream on. Without another word, Jiraiya unleashed a fire-release, flame bullet. A massive fireball, dozens of meters wide, hurtled forward. Bunpyku, in his half-tailed beast state, charged straight ahead and smashed through the fireball. His tailed beast cloak protected him, nullifying most physical attacks. Wind release, drilling air bullet. A colossal sphere of compressed air shot from Bunpyku's mouth, tearing through the battlefield at terrifying speed, aiming directly at Jiraiya. Water release, water cutting blade. Shima, one of the sage toads, countered instantly, spitting out a high-pressure jet of water that sliced through the incoming wind bullet with ease. Wind release, sandstorm bullet. Bunpyku retaliated, raising a massive wall of sand that surged forward like a tidal wave, threatening to engulf Jiraiya and his allies. Fire release, toad oil flame bullet. Jiraiya and Fukazaku reacted swiftly, unleashing a combined technique. A torrent of toad oil mixed with scorching flames surged ahead, instantly igniting the storm of sand. The high-speed particles, now turned to molten glass, rained down onto the battlefield, shimmering under the sunlight. From within Bunpyku, a furious voice roared. You worthless fool! Let me out! Struggling against a mere brat, how disgraceful! You're tarnishing my name. It was Shukaku, the One-Tail, raging within Bunpyku's consciousness. Unlike perfect Jinchuriki, Bunpyku could only access a portion of Shukaku's power. He couldn't fully unleash the tailed beast's might. Shukaku's temper flared as he watched Bunpyku struggle against Jiraiya. You sand shinobi are all useless. In the land of rain, you got slaughtered by some brat and fled like cowards. And now, even with my power, you still can't handle him? Pathetic. Shukaku's taunts were met with silence as Bunpyku ignored his protests. Instead, he manipulated the sand once more, conjuring enormous hands that reached toward Jiraiya, attempting to crush him. Sage Art, Giant Raiznan. Jiraiya formed a massive Raiznan with one hand and thrust it forward, drilling through the sand constructs with overwhelming force. Fire release, Crimson Fire Stream. Wind release, Tempest Surge. Fukazaku and Shima launched a coordinated attack, sending waves of searing fire and howling winds crashing into Bunpyku. The combined assault sent him hurtling through the air, his tailed beast cloak flickering as he struggled to regain control. Jiraiya hurled the lightning flame blade forward. A blazing tiger and a crackling thunder dragon erupted from the blade, striking Bunpyku dead on. His tailed beast cloak flickered even more, rapidly diminishing in intensity. Not letting up, Jiraiya dashed forward, reclaiming the lightning flame blade midair before executing Shungaku's shadow assassination formation. Before Bunpyku could even land, Jiraiya and his shadow clones had already surrounded him. Each clone wielded a blade, moving with incredible speed, slashing in unison. With a final decisive strike, Jiraiya's real body slashed down with the lightning flame blade, tearing through the remnants of the tailed beast cloak and cutting deep into Bunpyku's chest. Blood sprayed into the air as bones shattered, leaving a ghastly wound across his torso. The stronger Jiraiya became, the more lethal Shungaku's shadow assassination formation grew. The current version was far more devastating than before. Lord Bunpyku is wounded. Could it be that even he is no match for Jiraiya? This is insane. Jiraiya was nothing but a lecherous fool just half a year ago. How did he become so powerful in such a short time? Damn it! Not even a tailed beast's power can trouble him. If this continues, the balance between the great nations will be shattered. The Tsunaga Corps shinobi were gripped with fear. The tailed beasts were supposed to be their ultimate weapons, their deterrents against other nations. If even a tailed beast couldn't stop Jiraiya, the hierarchy of power among the great nations would crumble. Bunpyku, you're truly pathetic. Let me out. I'll rip that brat to shreds in an instant. Shukaku's enraged voice echoed within Bunpyku's mind. Chapter 185, completely losing confidence. Bunpyku had attacked multiple times, yet he couldn't do a thing to Jiraiya. Because of this, the one tail within him was on the verge of losing control. Shukaku was fuming. To him, Bunpyku was utterly useless, squandering his power in the most disgraceful way possible. He was the mighty One Tail, yet his Jinchuriki was failing to subdue a single opponent. This was unacceptable. If word of this spread, his reputation would be in shambles. Shukaku, you need to be careful when fighting him. Don't underestimate him. His strength is far beyond what we initially thought. Even if you take over, you'll need to take this fight seriously. Otherwise, even you might suffer losses. The power he commands. I'd say it's on par with you tailed beasts, especially his chakra. Even after unleashing one powerful jutsu after another, his presence hasn't weakened in the slightest. His chakra reserves are astonishing. If he weren't missing the unique presence of a Jinchuriki, I'd have assumed he had a tailed beast inside him as well. And then there's his summoning. Those two toads, their strength is terrifying. It goes far beyond normal chakra. They can wield the power of nature itself. That kind of strength is not to be underestimated. Bunpyaku, heavily injured, spoke to Shukaku within him. He had already realized that defeating Jiraiya was impossible on his own. Releasing Shukaku was his only option. Yet, even then, he wasn't confident of victory. Despite not being a perfect Jinchuriki, he had coexisted with Shukaku long enough to understand its nature well. Shukaku was quick to anger, easily falling into a frenzy. Once that happened, it lost all rationality. If it went berserk, there was a high chance Jiraiya would find a way to exploit that and defeat them. Bunpyaku was now convinced Jiraiya was strong enough to rival a tailed beast. TCH. Quit nagging. You think I'm as useless as you? If I take over, I'll tear that brat to shreds in an instant. And another thing, don't talk to me in that patronizing tone. If you do, I might just rip you apart too. I don't need your advice on how to fight. Shukaku's tone shifted with excitement upon realizing he was about to be freed. Defeat wasn't even a possibility in his mind. Taking down Jiraiya would be child's play. All he was thinking about now was the moment he broke free. The moment he would kill Bunpyaku, slaughter the Tsunade shinobi watching from afar, and finally gain his freedom never again to be sealed within a human. That tailed beast cloak has incredible defense. Jiraiya observed Bunpyaku's chest wound and muttered in amazement. If not for that chakra armor, his last strike would have cut Bunpyaku in two. Super Giant Raiznan Barrage. Jiraiya formed three massive Raiznan and hurled them at Bunpyaku. The spiraling orbs of chakra shot forward at incredible speed, giving Bunpyaku no time to react. One after another, the Raiznan slammed into him. A violent eruption of chakra engulfed Bunpyaku, sending powerful shockwaves outward. The ground beneath them cracked and collapsed as dust and debris shot into the air. With his near-limitless chakra, Jiraiya could unleash these devastating attacks repeatedly without worry. Jiraiya, how much longer can you keep this up? Fukazaku asked. He knew Jiraiya's chakra was abundant, but the sheer number of high-level jutsu being unleashed made him concerned. After all, defeating a tailed beast wasn't something that could be done quickly. Tailed beasts were living masses of chakra nearly inexhaustible in energy. That was what made them so formidable. Don't worry, my chakra is still full. Since the battle started, I've barely used any, Jiraiya replied confidently. That's an incredible gift. As expected of someone with the sage body. Shima, looks like we can go all out now. Fukazaku grinned. Less talking, more fighting. Shima snapped, eager for battle. Bunpyaku, still caught in the barrage, felt his body breaking under the relentless assault. His bones cracked. Blood trickled from his mouth. The wound on his chest widened despite the protection of his tailed beast cloak. Even with Shukaku's chakra shielding him, he couldn't withstand this level of punishment. It's over. It's all over. Even Lord Bunpyaku can't defeat Jiraiya. We're all going to die here. He won't let us leave. I never imagined Jiraiya was this powerful. Even if the Kaze Cage himself stepped in, I'm not sure he could win. No, with strength like this, even the Kaze Cage might not be able to kill him. Watching Bunpyaku getting overwhelmed, the Tsunade shinobi lost all hope. Jiraiya had become an unstoppable force in their eyes, a god of war. If even the mighty Bunpyaku couldn't stand against him, what chance did they have? Amidst the chaos, Bunpyaku struggled to move, gritting his teeth as he pulled open his shirt. On his stomach was a large black kanji glove surrounded by intricate, interwoven seals. It was the mark binding Shukaku within him. He raised his right hand, chakra surging into his palm, then slammed it onto the seal. The moment his hand made contact, the seal's interwoven patterns began to unravel, the symbols dimming. A monstrous surge of chakra erupted from his body, forming a wildstorm that howled across the battlefield. The air itself trembled as the energy took shape. At the center of the storm, a colossal figure emerged, its massive form blotting out the battlefield. Shukaku was free. The best light novels are waiting for you here. Don't miss out. Subscribe on Infinite Novel now. This universe grows with every follower. Are you part of Infinite Novel yet? Chapter 186. Incredibly weak at the center of the chakra storm, a massive figure emerged. Its body was a dull, earthen yellow, covered in swirling inscriptions of sealing jutsu. It was Shukaku's true form. The moment Shukaku was released, it threw its head back and let out a deafening roar before bursting into maniacal laughter. Ha ha ha, I'm finally free. No one can seal me away ever again. Jiraiya watched the towering beast, feeling a certain pressure not from its strength, but from its sheer size. The tailed beasts were simply enormous. Standing before Shukaku, Jiraiya looked like nothing more than an ant. You, brat, you've got some real power for someone so young. I didn't expect that. Shukaku's massive eyes locked onto Jiraiya, a sinister grin spreading across its face. You were the reason I got out of this pathetic host in the first place, but I can't let you live. I did say I'd kill every last shinobi, didn't I? Jiraiya smirked at the threat. A one-tailed beast like you? You're not even worth my time. You may be big, but that just makes it easier for me to pin you down and beat you senseless. Shukaku's laughter cut off instantly, its face twisted in rage. You damn brat. I was going to let you live a little longer, but since you're so eager to die, then die you shall. I'll rip you to shreds. Shukaku despised being called a one-tailed beast. The number of tails often determined a Baijuyu's status, and the 9 tails loved to mock Shukaku for having only one. Jiraiya's words had struck a deep nerve. The sand demon roared in fury and raised a massive claw before swinging it down with devastating force. The sheer size of the attack blotted out the sky, casting a dark shadow over Jiraiya. The wind howled violently as the claw descended, sending ripples through the air. Yet, Jiraiya's expression remained calm. With a swift motion, he drew the lightning flame blade and slashed upward. A brilliant arc of light flashed, slicing through Shukaku's enormous claw. In an instant, the severed limb crumbled into a cascade of sand, pouring to the ground below. Jiraiya stepped aside just as the remains of the claw crashed onto the battlefield, shaking the earth with a thunderous impact. Ha! That's all you've got? You thought you could rip me apart with that? Jiraiya scoffed, eyes filled with contempt. He wasn't underestimating Shukaku, he simply found it laughably weak. The beast had concentrated chakra into its attack, yet Jiraiya had cut through it effortlessly. His technique, cleaving blade strike, was a blade art he had created himself. Though the attack had cost him a tenth of his chakra, it was nothing he couldn't recover in moments. His cells quickly refined new chakra, restoring his reserves. That hurt, damn it. Shukaku howled in pain. Even though its body was made of sand, the pain from losing a limb was real. We're doomed. Jiraiya is unstoppable. No one can stand against him now. A shinobi from the land of wind screamed in despair. The beast they had placed their hopes in had lost a limb in a single strike. All thoughts of resistance crumbled. Run? Run where? It's too late. We're all going to die. Another shinobi collapsed to his knees, eyes lifeless. If even Shukaku couldn't stand against Jiraiya, what hope did they have? I'll kill you. I'll tear you apart, you damn brat. Shukaku bellowed, enraged. The ceiling inscriptions on its body glowed brightly as torrents of sand erupted from its wounds, reforming its missing limb in mere moments. Desert layered imperial funeral seal. With another furious roar, Shukaku unleashed an endless flood of sand, the grain swirling in the air like a tidal wave, stretching across the battlefield. The sand carried intricate sealing markings, ready to bind Jiraiya the moment they made contact. Even if the seal didn't activate, the sheer weight of the sand would be enough to crush him alive. Jiraiya, however, didn't flinch. Instead, he charged forward. Trying to bury me alive? How naive. Super giant ninefold Raiznan. With a swift motion, Jiraiya lifted his right hand, where 9 massive Raiznan orbs spun into existence, merging into an enormous, swirling sphere of destruction. The sheer force of the technique caused the ground beneath him to crack and sink. Even the very air seemed to warp from the overwhelming energy. Jiraiya hurled the colossal Raiznan forward just as the sand wave came crashing down. From above, Fukazaku let out a battle cry, channeling immense sage fire chakra. A barrage of massive, flaming meteor-like fireballs rained down upon the sand, igniting the battlefield. At the same time, Shima unleashed a devastating fusion of wind and water chakra. A massive tornado, sharp as a spear, spiraled forward, piercing through the sandstorm like a drill. The combined techniques clashed against Shukaku's sealing sand. Boom! A deafening explosion shattered the battlefield, drowning out all sound. The sheer force of impact sent shockwaves tearing through the land. The ground trembled violently, chunks of earth sent flying in all directions. The once mighty wall of sand collapsed. The ceiling inscriptions flickered and shattered, unable to withstand the overwhelming force. Chapter 187, the fierce battle. The runes imprinted on the sand vanished, and the golden grains began to trickle down, unable to gather together any longer. They now fell like ordinary sand drifting from the sky. Shukaku's attack had been completely neutralized. His sand could no longer pose any threat to Jiraiya. The combined assault of Jiraiya and his 2 companions had shattered Shukaku's strongest technique. Shukaku's power was formidable, but their strength surpassed it. As the saying goes, there's always a higher mountain, and in this case, Jiraiya's might stood above Shukaku's. Even the strongest sealing technique in Shukaku's arsenal had been thoroughly broken by Jiraiya's sheer power. You call this your strength, Shukaku? Jiraiya sneered. How disappointing. I was hoping you'd at least land a hit on me before I took you down, but from the looks of it, I clearly overestimated you. Beating you doesn't even require me to pay a price. Having dismantled Shukaku's strongest technique, Jiraiya deliberately mocked him. He did so for a reason. He knew that Shukaku had a notoriously short temper. The tailed beast was prone to rage, easily losing his composure. And once someone fell into blind fury, their combat awareness and ability to perceive danger would drastically decline. This was unavoidable. An enraged opponent couldn't calmly analyze the battlefield or carefully probe for their enemy's weaknesses. They would attack recklessly, doing everything in their power to destroy their target. But the more they fought in anger, the more openings they left in their defense. You little brat! How dare you look down on me? I'll tear you to pieces! Shukaku roared in fury. Never before had he suffered such ridicule. Even while sealed in the land of wind, everyone, whether it was Bunpyaku or other shinobi, always spoke to him with utmost caution, treating him with fear and respect, wary of provoking his wrath. Yet here was Jiraiya, mocking him without restraint. He had never been treated this way before. TCH, are you seriously that unoriginal? Is that all you can say? Jiraiya scoffed. I've already heard that line from you a dozen times. Can't you come up with something new? You bastard! I'm going to kill you. Shukaku's fury boiled over. His massive maw opened wide, and a vortex of chakra began rapidly condensing at its center, a deep purple and black sphere, the unmistakable form of a tailed beast ball. A true tailed beast ball. This was nothing like the incomplete version fired by Bunpyaku in his partial transformation. The difference in scale was overwhelming. Bunpyaku's attack had been a mere imitation, an unstable half-formed attempt. But the one forming in Shukaku's mouth now, this was the real thing. The sheer force of the technique carved deep fissures into the ground, shattering the terrain and sending tremors through the battlefield. Dust and debris exploded into the air. This was the kind of power capable of leveling mountains. Yet despite the oncoming destruction, Jiraiya remained calm. He moved his hands swiftly into a series of seals. There's no way Jiraiya can survive that, one shinobi whispered in disbelief. Even if he somehow withstands it, he'll be gravely injured, another muttered. Once Shukaku fires the tailed beast ball, finishing him off will be effortless. That level of attack, even the Kaze Cage himself would have to be extremely cautious. Jiraiya's strong, sure, but he hasn't been a cage-level shinobi for long. He might be above the level of an elite jonin, but compared to a seasoned cage, there's still a gap. Against this kind of power, there's no way he can walk away unscathed. Watching the fully formed tailed beast ball take shape, the shinobi of the Land of Wind felt a surge of hope. Even standing at a distance, they could feel the sheer force of it pressing against their bodies. When Bunpyaku had used his incomplete version earlier, the difference was clear back then. They hadn't felt this crushing sense of dread. Little Jiraiya, this is the real test, Fukazaku said gravely. If we can withstand this level of attack, taking down Shukaku will be much easier. As he spoke, his hands moved in a blur, forming seals as he prepared his strongest technique. Enough with the unnecessary talk, Shima snapped. We give it everything we've got. And if we can't block it, we'll use the summoning technique to escape. Like Fukazaku, she was also preparing a powerful jutsu. Jiraiya grinned. You two should have more confidence. An attack of this level isn't much of a challenge for us. He completed his hand seals, then thrust one hand toward the sky. Jiraiya's chakra surged, transforming into senjutsu energy. Storm clouds rapidly gathered overhead, darkening the once clear sky. Bolts of lightning crackled ominously, flashing through the swirling tempest. Then, in an instant, massive bolts of lightning, each as thick as a water tower, crashed down toward the incoming tailed beast ball. The first strike made impact. The sphere's velocity slowed. Another bolt struck, dispersing some of its chakra. The sheer force of the lightning bombardment was steadily weakening the tailed beast ball, unraveling its energy bit by bit. Heaven's Thunderstorm, Jiraiya's strongest lightning release Sage Jutsu, was designed to mimic the destructive force of natural lightning. A technique of this caliber consumed an immense amount of chakra. For most shinobi, unleashing such a jutsu would be nearly impossible, even at the cost of their life. But Jiraiya was built different. For him, this level of chakra expenditure was insignificant. His Sage mode allowed him to recover energy almost instantly. Lightning rained down in an unrelenting barrage, and the tailed beast ball's chakra rapidly dwindled. Within moments, its power had been halved. Fukazaku and Shima joined the assault. A roaring sea of flames erupted from Fukazaku's mouth, instantly engulfing the battlefield. The blazing inferno surged forward, swallowing everything in its path. At the same time, Shima's jutsu summoned a ferocious storm, winds howling like a raging beast. Chapter 188, Scared Off? Fukazaku opened his mouth and unleashed a powerful gust of wind, while Shima sprayed a torrent of rain. The two forces merged, complementing each other as they surged forward with devastating power. Boom! A deafening explosion echoed as the tailed beast ball collided with their combined attack. The chakra within it rapidly depleted, and before it could stabilize, a storm of lightning engulfed it. The sphere cracked, breaking into several fragments before being completely obliterated, leaving no trace behind. No way! That level of a tailed beast ball was still neutralized so effortlessly by Jiraiya? He's too strong. There's no way we from the Land of Wind can deal with him. We should retreat immediately. Don't even think about defeating him, he's completely invincible, like a god among men. Honestly, even Hanzo the Salamander, the so-called demigod of the shinobi world, wouldn't stand a chance against Jiraiya. He's on a whole different level. Yeah, Jiraiya is absolutely unbeatable. Why couldn't a genius like him have been born in our nation? If he were, we wouldn't be in such a miserable state. The fragile hope that the Land of Wind shinobi had clung to was once again shattered by Jiraiya's overwhelming power. Even in his fully transformed state, Shukaku's ultimate attack, the tailed beast ball, was rendered useless against Jiraiya. That technique was supposed to be the pinnacle of a tailed beast's strength, yet even that failed to take Jiraiya down. If his strongest move was ineffective, what other method could possibly work? Despair set in. They truly had no hope left. Damn it! I refuse to believe a mere human brat like you is this powerful. Shukaku's eyes widened in shock. He hadn't expected his strongest attack to be nullified without even scratching Jiraiya. Worse yet, Jiraiya looked completely unfazed, as if he hadn't exerted any effort at all. For the first time, a flicker of fear crept into Shukaku's heart. Despite his violent temperament, he wasn't a fool. If even his strongest technique was ineffective, it meant Jiraiya could fight on equal footing with him or perhaps even overpower him. Jiraiya wasn't some weakling he could tear apart at will. No, this was a warrior who could beat him down. Realizing this, Shikako had the sudden urge to flee. If he lost here, he would undoubtedly be sealed away again, reduced to nothing more than a weapon, stripped of all freedom. He had once been a carefree tailed beast, living in a lush forest without a care in the world. But one day, humans discovered his power and sought to claim it for themselves. His days of freedom had been stolen from him. You really thought you could rip me apart? How naive. Jiraiya sneered mercilessly. He leaped into the air, a massive Raiznan forming in his palm before he drove it straight at Shikaku's head. Magnet release Iron Sand Burial. With a furious roar, Shikaku unleashed a surge of magnetic energy. The iron-rich minerals in the surrounding earth rapidly gathered, forming an enormous wave of iron sand that crashed toward Jiraiya. Shikaku possessed the rare ability to wield magnet release, a unique Kekki Genkai. His powers had been extensively studied by the second Kazekage, who extracted its secrets and passed them down to later generations of Sand Shinobi. Both the third and fourth Kazekage inherited magnet release techniques, all of which were originally derived from Shikaku himself. The dense wave of iron sand clashed against Jiraiya's Raiznan, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The impact shattered the iron sand into countless fine particles, scattering them like dust. Fukazaku and Shima once again combined their powers, unleashing a torrential inferno that surged forward, consuming the iron sand entirely. The intense heat melted the iron, turning it into molten metal that dripped onto the earth below. Sage Art, 5-element Raiznan. Jiraiya wasted no time. 5 different Raiznan, each infused with a different chakra nature, formed in his hands. With a powerful swing, he hurled them at the remains of the iron sand. A series of devastating explosions erupted, reducing Shikaku's iron sand to nothing. Panic took hold of the tailed beast. None of his attacks worked. No matter what he threw at Jiraiya, the man crushed it with ease. Without a second thought, Shikaku turned and ran. Did Shikaku just flee? Am I seeing things? No way. This has to be some kind of illusion. A tailed beast running away out of fear? That's impossible. There must be a hidden Uchiha somewhere casting a genjutsu on us. Everything we're seeing has to be fake. The shinobi of the Land of Wind were dumbstruck. Their worldview had been utterly shattered. They had witnessed Shikaku go on rampages before. It had always taken their Kazekage tremendous effort to suppress him and seal him away again. But in all those encounters, Shikaku had never once shown fear. Yet now, before Jiraiya, he had fled in terror. Did that mean Jiraiya was stronger than their Kazekage? The thought sent shivers down their spines. Some of them collapsed to the ground, their spirits completely broken. Any hope they had was gone. Those who had chosen to stay behind and watch instead of fleeing had done so because they still believed in Shikaku's strength. But now that even Shikaku had run away, they had nothing left to believe in. Lord Jiraiya is incredible. He just neutralized the strongest attack from a tailed beast like it was nothing. I can't believe a tailed beast actually ran away in fear of him. His power is ridiculous. Absolutely insane. If I could reach even half of Lord Jiraiya's strength in my lifetime, I'd die happy. Half? You're dreaming. There's no way in hell you could ever be that strong. If you want to reach Jiraiya-sama's level, you might as well just keep dreaming. And hey, make sure you prop your pillow up nice and high, you'll have a better chance of dreaming big that way. The shinobi of the Land of Fire erupted in cheers. Many had started returning to the battlefield, led by none other than Tsunade herself. Even though Jiraiya had ordered them to withdraw, Tsunade had refused to leave. She had been worried about him and had chosen to wait instead. But now, she had brought reinforcements back with her. Chapter 189, Subduing the Tailed Beast. Tsunade simply couldn't bring herself to leave Jiraiya alone. Every Jinchuriki was an immensely powerful existence. Leaving Jiraiya to face one alone was far too dangerous. She decided to turn back and support him. She couldn't let Jiraiya take on such a risk by himself. If he was no match for the Jinchuriki, he would undoubtedly die. After all, there was no way the Wind Country's Jinchuriki would act alone. They would surely bring an entire battalion of Wind Country shinobi. If Jiraiya found himself outmatched, he wouldn't even have a chance to escape. So, she led her forces back to reinforce him. Even if they still couldn't defeat the Wind Country forces, at the very least, they could die together. In Tsunade's mind, she and Jiraiya were already bound together. Danger was something they had to face side by side. If Jiraiya perished, she would never continue living without him. And if they did have to die, at least they would die together. That, in itself, was a kind of happiness. However, just as she arrived, she was met with an astonishing sight. Jiraiya had actually frightened Shikaku into fleeing. The Fire Country shinobi were utterly dumbfounded. None of them had expected such an outcome. They had all assumed Jiraiya would be locked in a desperate battle, possibly even severely wounded by now. Yet now, before their eyes, Jiraiya had actually scared off a tailed beast. This was beyond their expectations. Tsunade-sama, Jiraiya-sama is unbelievably strong. He actually made a tailed beast run away on his own. Doesn't that mean we now have the power to destroy the Wind Country? One Fire Country shinobi exclaimed in excitement. The Wind Country had the poorest resources among the great nations, and their top-tier combat power was relatively limited. Aside from their Jinchuriki and current Kazekage, they only had 2 cage-level shinobi. Now that Jiraiya could defeat a Jinchuriki, it stood to reason that their Hokage would be able to defeat the Kazekage. By that logic, conquering the Wind Country was not an impossibility. You're right. Jiraiya-sama is still young, and he has plenty of room to grow. I believe that in the future, he alone will be enough to handle both the Kazekage and the Jinchuriki together, another shinobi said confidently. We are truly fortunate to have a genius like Jiraiya-sama in the Fire Country. The Fire Country shinobi were ecstatic. Even Tsunade couldn't hide the pride in her eyes as she looked at Jiraiya. Little sister, I have to admit, your taste in men is impeccable, Isamu remarked, sighing in admiration. He truly hadn't expected Jiraiya to have reached such heights of power already. At the same time, he felt relieved. Thankfully, the Senju clan had already established ties with Jiraiya, and their relationship was in good standing. If they had waited until Jiraiya's full rise to prominence before attempting to form a bond, it would have been far too late. Trying to run? Not so easy. Seeing Shikaku turn to flee, Jiraiya sneered. Unlike in the original timeline, Shikaku wasn't acting recklessly out of blind aggression. He actually had the sense to retreat. But thinking he could escape Jiraiya's grasp was nothing short of a dream. Jiraiya swiftly formed hand seals, and suddenly, a powerful gust of wind howled through the air. Massive red torii gates materialized from the sky, crashing down onto Shikaku's colossal body with a deafening impact. The torii gates slammed Shikaku to the ground, embedding deep into the earth. More and more torii gates rained down, piling onto Shikaku's form. Before long, nearly 1,000 of them covered his massive frame. Damn it! What kind of jutsu is this? It's actually sealing my chakra, Shikaku roared in panic. His chakra was nearly limitless, yet Jiraiya's technique had completely suppressed it. Panic surged within the tailed beast. Adamantine sealing chains. Jiraiya ignored Shikaku's struggles. His chakra surged again, and golden chains materialized, snaking toward the subdued beast. The adamantine sealing chains were a specialized technique designed to restrain tailed beasts. In the original timeline, even after childbirth had greatly weakened her, Uzumaki Kushina was still able to momentarily suppress the rampaging nine tails with this very technique. Now, with Jiraiya at full strength, his adamantine sealing chains were far more powerful than Kushina's in her weakened state. The golden chains wrapped tightly around Shikaku, restraining him completely. Glowing golden seals emerged, sinking into Shikaku's body. His chakra was completely locked down, and even his enormous form could no longer move. Shikaku, your power is mine now. With Shikaku fully restrained, Jiraiya unfurled a storage scroll. A long, black staff-like object shot out from the scroll and plunged directly into Shikaku's forehead. The staff was covered in intricate holes, and as it embedded itself into Shikaku's body, it began rapidly absorbing his chakra. The tailed beast's immense chakra was drawn into the black staff, collecting within the numerous openings. Damn it! What is this thing? It's actually stealing my power, Shikaku bellowed furiously. The black staff was an artifact Jiraiya had acquired through a special sign-in reward. When embedded into a tailed beast, it could directly extract their chakra. By using a specific technique, Jiraiya could then absorb the stolen chakra into his own body, fusing it with his own energy, and permanently claiming the power of a tailed beast as his own. In the original timeline, tailed beasts couldn't truly die. They were formed from chakra, and even if slain, their chakra would eventually disperse into the world and reassemble over time, resurrecting them. However, if their chakra was completely absorbed into another being and never returned to the world, then they would cease to exist entirely. Jiraiya's sign-in reward allowed him to accomplish precisely this. Shikaku's power was being drained away, and unlike before, this time, he wouldn't have the chance to revive. Jiraiya's artifact was truly a terrifyingly domineering weapon. Chapter 190 Plundering Power. Jiraiya's ambition to unify the ninja world made the system's rewards invaluable to him. With this particular ninja tool, he could absorb the power of all the tailed beasts into his own body. In the original story, a Jinchuriki could only wield the full power of a tailed beast with its consent. Without the beast's approval, using its chakra was nearly impossible. However, this black staff was undeniably domineering. Damn brat! What did you do to me? Shikaku roared at Jiraiya, a hint of panic in his voice. He could feel his chakra draining away at an alarming rate. His struggles weakened as his power continued to diminish, allowing the adamantine sealing chains to further suppress him. But Jiraiya wasn't having an easy time either. Shikaku's frantic resistance made maintaining the adamantine sealing chains difficult. The golden runes that had entered Shikaku's body were largely dispersed by the immense chakra inside the beast. You too, help me with frog call. Jiraiya turned to Fukazaku and Shima, who nodded in response. The two elder toads let out a powerful croak, sending sound waves rippling toward Shikaku. Jiraiya himself echoed their call, producing a violent sonic attack that engulfed the struggling beast. Little Jiraiya, when did you learn frog call? Fukazaku asked in surprise. The technique was originally created by the great toad sage and was almost impossible for non-toads to master. I learned it a long time ago, I just never told you, Jiraiya replied with a grin. Frog call was a technique that usually required extensive preparation. However, with all three of them using it simultaneously, Shikaku's consciousness was instantly dragged into a genjutsu world. Inside the illusionary space, Shikaku found himself confronted by four towering immovable Buddhas, each holding a stone blade. The moment the swords plunged into his body, his frenzied movements came to an abrupt halt. He was completely immobilized. His mind, body, and chakra were all locked down, leaving him helpless as the black staff continued to drain him. The once massive Shikaku gradually shrank. Now, he was nothing more than prey on Jiraiya's chopping block. The only way he could survive was if someone intervened and removed the black staff. Otherwise, his fate was sealed. Little Jiraiya, what kind of weapon is that? Fukazaku asked, eyes wide with curiosity. It's so powerful it can outright plunder a tailed beast's chakra. Tailed beasts were composed entirely of chakra, with an unparalleled level of control over their own energy. Draining chakra from them was an incredibly difficult feat, yet Jiraiya had done it effortlessly. This ninja tool was something I found in an ancient ruin, Jiraiya lied smoothly. It can forcibly extract an enemy's chakra. I never expected it to work so effectively on a tailed beast. He had no intention of revealing the truth about the system. Since the time of the Sage of Six Paths, countless powerful ninja tools have been lost to history, Shima mused. Judging by its abilities, this weapon might be from the Sage's era. You're really lucky to have found it, Jiraiya. Luck is part of strength, Fukazaku agreed, nodding. They had no reason to doubt him. The ninja world was full of ancient and powerful relics, and even Mount Mayaboku had its own collection of legendary tools. Some of those artifacts were so powerful that only the Great Toad Sage could wield them. Many of these tools could harness natural energy, allowing their users to perform senjutsu even without mastering Sage mode. Mount Mayaboku, along with the other two great Sage lands, represented the true origins of this world's power. Chakra, in contrast, was an external force introduced by the Otsutsuki. 3 minutes later, the last remnants of Shikaku's chakra were fully absorbed by the black staff. His colossal body crumbled into sand and faded into nothingness. Jiraiya reached out and retrieved the staff, feeling the immense chakra contained within. If he could refine and wield all of it, his strength would skyrocket once again. Little Jiraiya, now that Shikaku is dealt with, will be heading back, Fukazaku said. The battle had drained a significant amount of their senjutsu chakra, leaving them exhausted. They needed to return to Mount Mayaboku to recover. Jiraiya nodded. With the tailed beast eliminated, there was no reason for them to stay any longer. After securing the black staff and releasing Sage mode, Jiraiya turned his gaze toward a valley in the distance. A large group of Omega Corps shinobi stood there, led by a man in a cloak and a mask that concealed his face. Hanzo of the Salamander. The leader of Omega Corps and the man known as the demigod of the ninja world had arrived. Jiraiya's battle with Shikaku had been nothing short of cataclysmic. Given how close they were to Omega Corps, it was only natural that Hanzo would come to investigate. If he hadn't, it would mean he was either too arrogant or too foolish. After all, the sheer devastation caused by a tailed beast's attacks was not something that could be ignored. Standing atop the valley, Hanzo's exposed eyes gleamed with intensity. Though his face remained hidden behind the mask, his aura was unmistakably grave. The best light novels are waiting for you here. Don't miss out. Subscribe on Infinite Novel now. This universe grows with every follower. Are you part of Infinite Novel yet?